The biggest bank in Europe, Deutsche Bank, is on the verge of total collapse, as Zero Hedge here reports. It says the biggest bank in Europe is in the process of imploding, and there are persistent rumors that the final collapse could happen sooner rather than later. The Deutsche Bank is rapidly bleeding cash. They have been laying off thousands of workers. They laid off about 18,000 workers just recently. And the vultures have been circling as company executives desperately try to implement a turnaround plan. Unfortunately for Deutsche Bank, it may be already too late. It says here that if Deutsche Bank goes down, it will be even more catastrophic than the global financial system than the collapse of the Lehman Brothers in 2008. We all recall what happened in 2008 with the bad mortgages and so on. And it says Germany is the glue that is holding the EU together. And so if the bank that is right at the heart of Germany's financial system collapses, the dominoes will likely start falling very rapidly. And then this could mean the end of the EU. Now, it also says here that Angela Merkel refuses to bail out this bank. And they're saying she refuses to bail it out because she will lose her chancellorship, which is inevitable anyways. But she says if they do bail out this bank, well, then the EU, the euro dollar, will fall. So she's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and she doesn't know what to do, but she did announce that they will not bail out this bank because this bank is tied to many, many other banks in Europe, and that if Deutsche Bank falls, then all the banks fall in Europe, and of course it will trigger a global financial crisis. It says here, the truth is that anybody with half a brain can see that Deutsche Bank is dying. At this point, it's just a zombie bank that is stumbling along until someone finally puts it out of its misery. And it says here that Deutsche Bank is the largest domino in Europe's very shaky financial system. When it fully collapses, it will set off a chain reaction that nobody is going to be able to stop. David Wilkerson once warned that the financial collapse of Europe would begin in Germany, and Jim Rogers has warned that the implosion of Deutsche Bank would cause the entire EU to disintegrate. Then the EU would disintegrate because Germany would no longer be able to support it and would not want to support it. A lot of other people would start bailing out. Many banks in Europe have problems, and if Deutsche Bank has to fail, that is the end of it, meaning the end of the EU. In 1931, notice this, when one of the largest banks in Europe failed, it led to the Great Depression and eventually World War II. And then he says, be worried. And that pattern could happen all over again if Deutsche Bank collapses. And if Deutsche Bank collapses, Germany collapses, the EU will collapse, which we have been saying for years now, that the EU is going to come to an end. As it says here in Revelation, the 17th chapter, it talks about 7 mountains, and mountains rise, peak, and fall. And we're at the 6th head of the beast. It says, one is, these are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, which is medieval Europe right up till the time of Napoleon. And then it says, one is. The Apostle John was projected forward into time to the time of the 6th head of the beast. One is, and that started in 1870 with William I of Prussia and Garibaldi, and it peaked during the time of Hitler and Mussolini. And the EU is a Nazi Plan B. It is a Nazi system created by the Nazis. It peaked during the time of Hitler and Mussolini. Now it's on the downward slide called the EU, and eventually the EU will come to an end. It says, one is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. That's the 7th and final head of the beast, which will lead towards the time called the Great Tribulation and the second coming of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. So we are right there at the end of the 6th head and the start of the 7th head of this final beast. For the BICOG Media, this is Peter Salemi.